It's been a long time, Ariel, since we've seen George. It's been 2013, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Is he going to be the same guy in the ring?
Well, that is, the $64 million question, and no one really knows that answer. But I'll tell you this about George St. Pierre. He doesn't need money. And often in combat sports, when we see someone come out of a long break or retirement, he never used the R word when he was away, but you get what I'm saying. It's often because, the IRS is knocking at their door. They need money. They've run out of money, etc. That's not the case with him. He hasn't been sitting on a couch. He hasn't been getting fat. He hasn't been getting out of shape. He hasn't been anywhere but the gym. He's actually very present at the gym, teaches a class multiple times a week, helps guys train, corners fighters. He has not been hiding since he last fought back at UFC 167. So all this to say, I trust George St. Pierre. He's still in his mid-30s. He's not 40. If he says that he's ready to come back, if he goes through a training camp with the likes of Freddie Roach and Faraz Zahabi and the team at TriStar, and they are confident that he's ready to come back, who am I to say that he's not going to look good? So I trust him, and I feel like he's ready given all of these circumstances.
But do you find it a little ironic that GSP on your show says this is a sport where you do your thing and you kind of get out? Well, he's been out for a very long time, and now he's coming back. Is he still going to be the same guy that we're used to?
Look, I've been on the record multiple times almost pleading with George to say, please don't come back. You don't need this. You made a lot of money. You somewhat defied the odds. French-Canadian guy from a small town becomes UFC champion, arguably one of the greatest ever. You can make a case for him on the Mount Rushmore of MMA legends. Why do you need this? You had concussions. You were beat up towards the end. You leave with your belt. You leave on a high note. You leave on a winning streak. This is the perfect story. You can't script it better than this in combat sports. But we all know in combat sports, it's just hard to walk away. And this is who he is. This is what he's born to do. He's just in his mid-30s. Like, he's all kind of our age. Like, imagine you're just done doing what you do for a living. That's a hard thing to process, especially when you have this drug of fighting in front of people and the rush and just the attention that comes with it. I mean, there's just a lot out there. But what's interesting is he's not coming back to reclaim that old title of his. Yeah. He's coming back for a new challenge. He's coming back for the middleweight title. So it's kind of a new chapter in his life. Again, I would have been fine with him walking away, but I'll tell you this much. Not only should the fans in Canada be happy that he's back, because let's be honest, the scene has been a little dry since he left, but more so than anyone, the UFC should be really happy that he's back, because they need him now more than ever, especially with Conor on hiatus, Ronda gone, John Jones suspended until the summer, Brock Lesnar gone. They need a star like George St. Pierre.
All right, let's continue this theme, Ariel. So he walks right back into the company, and for a while there, he was one of the top pay-per-view draws in any given year, aside from Brock Lesnar, obviously. But GSP walks back in. Where do you put him right now in this moment among the biggest pay-per-view draws they got, considering some of the names and circumstances you just threw out?
Well, I'm assuming Conor McGregor is coming back at some point, so he's still the king. He's still, in my opinion, the greatest draw in the sport's history, and that's in a very short amount of time. That's a whole different discussion for a different day, but he's still there. I'm going to put Ronda aside because as of right now, it doesn't seem like she's coming back anytime soon. I'm going to put Brock aside. I'm going to put George above John Jones, though, and I'm going to put him in that discussion with the Diaz brothers, because I think that the Diaz brothers are still draws, but it's hard to get them back in the cage. And also, I think they have to fight the right kind of opponent. Diaz and McGregor was magic, but I think the appeal for his first fight back, just to see how he looks, he's a breath of fresh air. It's funny, George came back on that Friday last week. You showed the press conference 2 hours after this highly anticipated fight between Khabib Nurmagomedov and Tony Ferguson got canceled. And it was amazing. They posted this video of him walking into the cage. And he's so classy. He's wearing the suit. He bows before entering the cage. And it felt like this ray of sunshine just bursting through these dark clouds. It was such a miserable morning for the UFC. And here's George, the ultimate professional, the first guy to show up to the press conference wearing a suit, all class, back. And it couldn't come at a better time for the sport and for the company. So I'll put him below Conor. I'm not going to include Ronda if she's back. She's obviously above. But I will put him above, the likes of John Jones and in that discussion with the Diaz brothers. And that's obviously, pretty esteemed company.
Ariel, I haven't covered George, obviously, in many years. You've been to more of his pay-per-views than I. The one thing we can both agree on is Canadian MMA fans travel well.
Yes.
whenever GSP is in the octagon. And there are a lot of people wondering, they're excited about the fight with Bisping, but they're still wondering why there's a delay in a date, in a venue, yada, yada, yada. Walk us through it. What's the reasoning?
Okay, well, first off, I'm hoping that his return signals the return of Sid because, I mean, it's been 5 years or so since I've seen you at an event. You used to be a mainstay. You were there, bringing the class to reporting and professionalism, and now you've kind of gone off and done your own show.
None of that's true, but thank you very much.
So it would be nice to have you back.
I brought aggression to the buffet in the media room is what I brought.
You did.
You brought the actual class. I set the standard. I'll give myself that for that.
Okay, so let's talk about George. So the UFC wants him to return in July. They have a huge show, July 8th in Las Vegas, International Fight Week. It's kind of like their Super Bowl. They love to do a big show around July 4th. But members of his team have told me, multiple sources have told me, and George St. Pierre himself told me as recently as Monday that July is just too ambitious, that more like the fall, September-ish is a better target for him. Now, he has to do 4 months of USADA testing because now, in case you don't know, in the UFC, they're kind of overseen by the United States Anti-Doping Agency as far as their anti-doping is concerned. They have one of the most stringent anti-doping policies in the entire sports world. And if you leave the UFC for any amount of time, if you retire, if you get released, whatever, you have to come back into this sort of testing pool for 4 months. It's going to change come April 1st, but we're not there yet. So right now it's 4 months. So let's say he came back, he went back into the testing pool around 2 weeks ago. That brings us to the end of or mid-June. Then he has to go through a training camp and all this stuff. So this is what he wants. The UFC wants him in July because, as I said, they need a draw. And it would be perfect for July 8th. But he's saying right now that that's too ambitious. And also, they're also saying, which is disappointing to me, that it's probably going to be in Las Vegas. I was hoping that they would do it at the Big O. Could you imagine 65,000 people at the Big O?
God,
it would be incredible. Forget about the Rogers Center. Why does everyone talk about George St. Pierre fighting in Toronto? He's from Montreal. Put him at the Big O.
Damn.
That place will sell out. It would be great, but they're not talking about that right now, unfortunately.
That would be the biggest event of the Big O since Metallica, Guns N' Roses.
That's
and I know
not
it
true.
didn't really end well, but it was exciting at the time. Oh,
The Big O, by the way, has hosted some great combat sports events back in the 70s and 80s.
Correct.
Boxing used to come there. The Olympics. Let's not forget about the Impact and TFC. They had like 60,000 or so just, back in November. The Big O could still draw, my friends. Don't hate on the Big O.
All right, Ariel, before we go, I want to ask you quickly about Floyd Mayweather. His comments this week about how he is the biggest star in the UFC. We know Floyd's never been short on confidence. Is that a bit much, though, or is this just trying to sell a potential Mayweather-McGregor fight?
Well, whatever he's doing, whatever Conor's doing, it's certainly working. They are talking. This is a real thing. The MMA media, the sports media, they need to accept this. Now, is it going to happen? None of us know. There's no, signature on a contract, as he was saying to Conor, sign the papers, all that stuff. That hasn't happened yet. But there are discussions. I said a couple months ago, it reached the exploratory phase. Maybe it's a step up right now. There are actual talks going on. Where do we go from here? No one knows. There's so many cooks in this kitchen. It will be an unprecedented event. Boxing champion, MMA champion, the egos involved, the promoters involved, all these things. I mean, there are a lot of hurdles still to overcome. But this is something that they are trying to do. And everyone involved stands to make a hell of a lot of money. And when there's a lot of money to be made, rich people are going to try to make more of that money. And that's what's happening right now. So let's see what happens. But, I know fans kind of roll their eyes when Conor comes out and says something, when Floyd comes out and says something like he did this week. You can roll your eyes all you want, but this is a thing that is being discussed. And there's a chance that it happens. It's not a pie in the sky sort of, talking point that, some of these debate shows like to bloviate about. It's an actual thing right now. So we kind of have to accept it at this point.
I have to say, Ariel, I do not follow athletes on social media. I try not to. I am following both Floyd and Conor at the mere whim of this idea. And it got me hook, line, and sinker. I still don't believe it's going to happen at all. I just think it's too complicated. And anyone involved in the world of boxing knows things in boxing never happen when they should happen. That we all know, although this is a bit of a different situation. But I'd love for it to happen, but I just don't buy it.
And what's unique about this one is it's not Conor and Floyd just sitting at a table and getting a deal done. There's the UFC aspect, and, they're very... they're a little needy when it comes to their relationship needs, if we want to put it that way. And, look, they have every right to be. They have a contract with Conor, and he can't just walk away and say, oh, I'm going to go do my own thing. I want to put it on the record right here. If Conor Floyd gets signed, for some time in the next 5 years, let's put it at 5 years, Sid Seixeiro will actually tweet something. Will you actually write a tweet? Will you put something out there to the world? How long has the hiatus been? Why are you doing this to us, Sid? I see you pop up with a like and a retweet here or there. I want an actual tweet. Can we get that on the record on the
Ariel,
show?
you're breaking up. I'm sorry. It's unfortunate. I will address this one day. Damn you!
Okay.
You are a damn sharp cookie, Helwani.
He's good. He's good.
Ariel Helwani, MMAfighting.com, MMA Hours, one of the best pods in the business. He's one of the best journalists in the business, period. And a proud Canadian. We are proud of you,
Yes.
Ariel. All the best, brother. Thank you very much.
Go Israel, WBC, we're killing it.